Okay, I'd like to thank everybody for reading. So this is technically our first meeting of a new old group. I think this group is 26 years old and just been left to decay. This will be called the Stay Alive Group Literature and Step Meeting. And then we're going to record each talk. And we'll put a step series together, and they'll be available to everybody. So that'll be a really powerful tool. And having a different speaker every week bring up to a step, something different. The speaker will speak between 25 and 35 minutes. We can change and modify this as we go along. We'll meet here at St. Paul's every Monday night at 6 p.m. in Doylestown, PA. So the first meeting, who else to kick off? But we have Rick D., the future of this group. And may I say, the future of Alcoholics Anonymous now rests on our speaker, and I'll turn the meeting over to him. Please welcome Rick D.
So, guys, my name's Rick, and I'm an alcoholic. If the group rests on my shoulders, it's in trouble. My sobriety date is November 29th of 2005. And my job tonight is to talk about step one and my experience with step one. And step one was very tricky for me at first. I give my sobriety date because when I shared a little bit about what it was like, my first AA meeting was in 1999. So it's 6 years of bouncing in and out of fellowship, suffering needlessly because I didn't know what it was I suffered from. And if you have a wall of pride that goes up like me, that you can walk into a room and you're dying, but you're so afraid of what people think about you that you can't ask for help. Because how do you ask for help and not look like you need it? That's an art form. I perfected that art form my entire life. And I would come in a room like this, and there would be guys that are happy and joyous and free, and women that were happy, relatively happy, and I had to put that face on like I was too. And I never let anybody get to know me. I would never make the same meetings twice in a row. I didn't know what AA was and what it wasn't. And I have a lot of opinions, but my opinions are always going to be based on experience. My job is to talk about step one. And for 6 years, I thought because I had a desire to not drink, that desire to not drink would keep me sober. And not only did I pay the price, but my family paid the price for that mistake. It talks about in 12 and 12, it says, why all this insistence that every AA must hit bottom first? The answer is that few people will sincerely try to practice the AA program unless they have hit bottom. And my bottoms have never been materialistic. I adapt. Like being homeless in Kensington is just like urban camping. I adapt. Every one of my bottoms were on the inside. But there's this funny thing that happens to me is that when I come in and I get 12 steps or I go to some treatment center or some rehab, I'll get separated from it for a little while. And in that little while, I will get material stuff back. I'm an alcoholic. I'm not a dummy. I think everyone in this room, I think alcoholics are smart, and every one of us have the capacity to bring stuff to us. The problem with me is I bring stuff to me and I can't keep it. And it's an awful feeling to sit in a room of AA and feel like you're dying knowing you're going to drink again. I felt that way for 6 years. It's hard to make friends or apply for a job or do anything when you know you're going to drink again. That's how I felt my entire 6 years in AA, because there's only a few things that make us alcoholics, and it's not real complicated. Our book talks about it. This phenomenon of craving is that when I start drinking, I can't stop. Right? And then when I'm stopped, I have this thing in my mind that's going to take me back to it, whether I want to or not. So there's two things right there that make me an alcoholic. That's inclusive. Because if you go based on my war story, people whose war stories aren't as deep as mine or as bad as mine will exclude yourself. That's what I did. I always excluded myself. I always looked for the differences, never the similarities. Because the meetings I was going to, people weren't talking about this first step in the context of our books or our literature. So when I come in to my first meeting, I hear this guy, his son was in Notre Dame, and he stole his kid's college fund. I ain't even got kids. He's way worse than I am. I'm not in the right place. Next couple of meetings I would go to, guys were being in jail. They're covered with tattoos, nothing personal. They're covered with tattoos, and they're talking with this language that's trashy. I'm like, I don't talk like that. I'm not covered in tattoos. I'm going to exclude he's way worse than I am. I never really heard the message, because you don't know what you're listening for. I'm not going to hear the message. And people were telling me I was doing good because I was sober 30 days. And at one time I had 13 months sober. And I'll tell you what my life looked like at 13 months sober. I was unemployable because I had so much anxiety I could never show up for anything. I was making 3 meetings a day for 13 months. At the end of that 13 months, I walked in my parents' house, and I wasn't even living there. I had a key, because we get a little bit of time, people start to trust you again. And I walked in my parents' house, opened the front door, they were in the rec room in the basement. And I went upstairs and I hung myself in my parents' bathroom. That's what untreated alcoholism looks like. There's a big difference between being sober and having a different way of living. There's a big difference. I've been in both. There's a big difference, you know. And I didn't know what it was I suffered from. Another thing that makes me an alcoholic, so I got this thing inside of me. I picked up a drink at 14 years old down Wildwood. I spent every summer down the shore. I still try to get down there as much as I can, and that's just where my memories are at, drinking. And I didn't lose my paper route down there. I was homeless at 15 and dropped out of school. But I did have that thing inside of me that when I drank, that I always wanted more. Now, I couldn't drink at 14. My mom and daddy, I have a thing that's home. I had 2 things at home that were cutting bathroom and powerful. It's called Mom and Dad, and my brother and my sister. It was 4th thing that would keep an eye on me. So I couldn't always drink as much as I would have liked to. But that thing developed over a period of time. I drank for 28 years, relatively without any consequences. So there was a time when I wanted to put it down and I couldn't. And that brought me into my first one of 13 treatment centers in 6 years. It's a lot of suffering. It's a lot of money. A lot of insurance. It's a lot of misery on our families. Because there's also a delusion I suffer from is I'm only hurting myself. What a lie that is. And then I get separated, I go to treatment, and I get it. When I'm drinking, I'm walking Kensington Avenue, I'm doing dirty stuff to get more booze. I get it. I'm 100% alcoholic. Then what happens to me is I get separated, I eat a lot of ramen noodles, put a little weight on, go to the gym, and I'll get tan, go to the beach, I'll sit outside, hanging out outside with the guys, get a little tan, and there's only about 50% alcoholism in that. I apply for a job, I get called back, 30% alcohol. I get a home group, or I go to the same meetings a couple times in a row, and that girl smiles at me. Now I'm about 27% alcohol. I get a job, I get that job, 16% alcohol. I get my first paycheck, 5% alcohol. I go on my first date, 2% alcohol. I get laid, you can't find no more alcoholism left in that. See, this young lady read it, that I'm alcoholic, drunk, or sober. Big difference. I thought I get it when I'm drinking. So when I get separated from it, I have a mind that takes me back to it, because that's what alcoholism is. The alcoholism is in between my drinks. It talks about on page 30, we learned that we had fully conceived on our most selves that we were alcoholics. This is the first step in recovery. It ain't the first step on the wall, but it's the first step in recovery. Big difference. I never knew that. Concede means to admit it's true. I ain't got to like it. I ain't got to accept it. 3 days sober, living in a recovery house. I'm not accepting much. Then I learn I got to be on curfew. I got to do chores. Right? I'm not accepting too much. And I sit down with a sponsor for the first time. I'm a couple days sober. Actually, I was 12 hours sober when I got 12-step. And he explained the first step to me. And my life has not been the same since. Whether I drink again or not, my life will never be the same. And he asked me one question. Now, I hung myself, and I fell 12 feet, about 6 feet on this porcelain bathtub with the metal tracking and its shower doors. And my face was busted up. And I had 50 staples holding my face and about a couple hundred stitches in my hair. I don't know what I had. I looked like a cat when I came in this recovery house. Soon after that, I got locked up. And if you've ever been in the Pennsylvania prison system, they don't really care about us too much. I got no medical attention. I had scabs, and everything was infected. And I had strings sticking out of my face. And this kid that came in the recovery house, he just asked me a couple questions. The first question was, he came in with a big book, and I went, he said, Rick, go upstairs. And ask yourself, look at that mirror upstairs in that bathroom, and ask yourself if you're okay. And if you can say that you're okay, then you can, you'll never see me again. I walked up there, and I just looked in the mirror, and I just looked at myself for the first time in a while. I'm like, holy crap. I wasn't okay. And it wasn't the DUIs. It wasn't going to face in jail. It wasn't, my family wasn't talking to me no more. It wasn't none of that stuff. I was broke on the inside for the first time. For the first time at that level. I went down those steps, and I asked that kid to help me. And it pissed me off because he's younger than I was. And he always had to get a sponsor that was way older than me. He had to have a lot of time sober. This guy didn't have a lot of time sober, but he was on fire with Alcoholics Anonymous. And he asked me another question. He said, do you think drinking's your problem, or do you think sobriety's your problem? I said, Dan, drinking. I said, drinking's my problem. I had 13 months sober. Just burnt my life down to the ground again. And he walked out of the house, and he got what every good sponsor wants. He got me to follow him. I followed him down to his truck, and I said, what was that, the wrong answer? And he said, think about it. Think about it. There's no right or wrong. Just think about it, though. If you haven't touched alcohol in 13 months, how can it be your problem? He said, what your problem is ugly, untreated, and miserable, so full of fear, sobriety, that you can't breathe. And the only way you can breathe is until you take a drink. Just like that, my life hasn't been the same. And he got me right into service with the home group in Northeast Philly. My Stepping Stones is my home group. And I haven't looked back since. And that's not anything to do with me. Booze did that. I had nothing to do with my sobriety date. Anybody else picked their sobriety date? It was just time to get separated. But it's the actions. You know, we hear a lot of times in meetings, I'm only sober through God's grace. That's not my experience. God's grace got me to that guy. It's the actions I take now to have conscious contact. And that's the difference. There's a thing here called conscious contact with a power greater than ourselves, which is going to solve all our problems. I never believed in any of that crap. Don't get into that hocus pocus stuff. But at about 4 months sober, I got bit by the recovery bug in my prayers. That virus never leaves my spiritual bloodstream. Alcoholics Anonymous is the best thing that ever happened to me. It's why I sit up here. I will never say no if I can help it to alcohol. Some people say, you can say no. I don't. If I can do it, Ron called me. I know I'm not the first choice. Ron called me at 2 o'clock. So I'm always the fourth and fifth choices, which is cool with me because anonymity, I truly believe in that. I'd rather be a lighthouse than a tugboat. And there's a thing called spotlight of the Spirit. It's called the sunlight of the Spirit. I do not want to be in the spotlight. This is uncomfortable for me. I do it because it's what we're asked to do, and I just do it. You know, and the other thing that makes me an alcoholic is that alcohol and drugs change my perception of reality. That's the main thing. I never would have drank twice if it didn't do that for me. How I know that is my own drink. My first drink wasn't this white light experience, but I'll tell you what happened. 14 years old, what problems do you have down in Wildwood? Other than I got long, greasy hair, I got a big, giant nose, skinny little legs, and I can't talk to girls. Right? And my cousin hands me a quart of Budweiser under the boardwalk and says, you're drinking tonight because this way you can't rat us out. I wouldn't have ratted him out. I never seen anybody drink. I never seen anybody drunk. My parents don't drink. I never seen anybody drunk. I would do anything my family asked me to do to fit in. It's all my cousins and her friends, and my cousin was 19, and her friends were all cute. I'm like, I drank a little more than half of that quart of Budweiser, went back up on the boardwalk, and I was free. I had a different bounce in my step. I wasn't afraid to talk to her friends. I stuttered really bad. I was like Shakespeare that night. I was just fluently coming out, just telling stories and laughing. That's not me. Next day, I shrink back up into Rick again. So that's. Anybody ever drink anybody good looking? That's how that's how powerful this is. Oh, you said, oh yeah. That's how powerful this is. It can change the looks of somebody. And I know that at keg parties. I'm 16, 17 years old in the playground. Drinking, that's my first girlfriend. I said, what'd you just get here? She's like, I've been here. You were talking to me earlier. And I started to recognize that alcohol had a lot of power in it. It's my fear remover. It's my awkwardness remover. Mickey Bush calls it the nerd remover. I'm a nerd. I drink and I don't care if I'm a nerd anymore. I don't get cool. I just don't care if I'm a nerd anymore. And that's just my experience with it. Right? And then I drink and there's no consequences because this is Alcoholics Anonymous. It's all inclusive. And how I know that is through my own experience. I was doing a big book study in another state with a friend of mine, and she kept talking about jail and prostitution and DUIs and jail time and more jail time and stealing. And if that was a criteria to be an alcoholic, many of us wouldn't be in this room right now. And some lady came up to me after the meeting and said, I like you guys. I like what you share. You're very honest. But this is Alcoholics Anonymous. We're all inclusive here. Has nothing to do with our war stories. And it hit me like a ton of bricks, like, wow. I get that. This is, in other words, if all I based being an alcoholic was, I have friends of mine who I drank with who were sober a long time today. And they came in way before I did. And they never lost a thing through drinking. That's not my experience. But they are just as alcoholic as I am. So I have to take a square look at this. It makes it really easy to admit that. And, it says, most of us have been unwilling to admit we were real alcoholics. Why? Because nobody likes to think he's bodily and mentally different from his friends. I'm not opposed to opiates or cocaine. Cocaine and vodka were my thing. I grew up in the 80s in Quaaludes. Thank God I don't make them no more. I caught the tail end of the Quaalude kick, and it was amazing. It was awesome. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't. And when you admit, I got a problem with drugs. I remember my first 4 or 5 times out of rehab, I had my family hoodwinked that drugs are a problem. I could still drink. And after about the 5th time, they're looking at me like this. Nah, maybe you can't drink either. Because everything started with a drink for me. I love vodka. I love Budweiser. That's my thing. I don't drink none of this. Like I went shopping for my girlfriend's daughter. We were on vacation. Told me what to get. I'm like, you're getting Budweiser. You're going to drink. And you're going to drink the real stuff. I don't want this Bud Light seltzer shit. I said, we ain't drink no Zima, none of that stuff. We're going to drink Budweiser or Heineken. That's what you're going to get. And I did get her. I got her kettle. She's not an alcoholic. I got her. She started drinking this other stuff. I said, here, I'm going to make you Kettle One cranberry. It's fruity. You like it. Yeah, all she needed was one of those. And then she stopped. That's not my experience. Then she took a shower and she went out with her friends, like on the boardwalk. Right? When I start to drink, I can't shut it down when I need to or when I want to. And if the love of family or the love of our children, now the look of the child can get us in here. The look of the pet can get us in here. I've experienced that. My niece looked at me one time with this disgust. And I'll tell you what, that was enough to get me in here. But if I don't take no action once I'm here, what good is it? If the real alcohol, my first step has very little to do with not drinking. You'll hear that a lot. Work step 1. Work step 1, don't drink. Work step 1, don't drink. That's not my experience. How I work step 1 is by drinking. Or sitting down, it says we learned that we had to fully conceive. That means I had to learn what makes me who I am. I have to know what it is about me that what I'm going to admit to in this first step. I hear people come in all the time, I know I was an alcoholic. I didn't know I was an alcoholic. I didn't know. I learned that, and I called alcoholism in the rooms of AA. I didn't know what it was. And then And my alcoholism is in between the drinks. And the 12 steps 2 through 12 treat those behaviors in between those drinks, so I stay comfortable enough when I'm not drinking, so I don't have to go back to drinking. It's a very simple deal. Once it's put to me like that, like I'm no further away from God tonight than I am the night I took my last drink. I'm not. I'm awake to it today. I'm conscious of there's a power. And step 1 talks about powerlessness. Just because I'm powerless doesn't mean there's not power. And that's what steps 2 through 12 do. They tap into this power that's open to everybody. No matter what color, creed, religion, doesn't matter. That's a beautiful thing about AA. It's open. This is a spiritual program. It's not religion for me. How I look at it is a man-made society. This is how you got to believe. AA is just the opposite. You ain't got to do nothing here. You come in, you can steal 7 tradition. Can't throw you out. Now I know I did that before, life or death. And the stepping stones. I made amends for that since. I'm not opposed to taking that. Right? Throw a 10 in and take 40 out. Right? It's an honest program. No one's really watching you. Right? So, step one always killed me as far as not being aware of what makes me what I am, what makes me do the things I do. 14 and a half, God willing, I have 15 years in a month and a half or so, and 2 months. And I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I was. I didn't know what made me do the things I do. Today, I know who I am. I know what I am. I know what makes me do the things I do. I also have a way out. I'm not lost the way I used to be. I'm not lost. And there's a few things that I do know. I don't know a whole lot. I'm always learning. Is that we can't get so sober we can't drink again. There's no such thing as super sober. Although there is some people who think they're super sober. No such thing as super sober. I have no say-so when I drink and do drugs again. None. I have a program. If I follow and a service structure, if I follow that, there's probably a good chance that I probably won't get uncomfortable enough to pick one up. But I have no say in that. Because when my session hits, I just go. I'll be sitting in this room, I'll walk out the door. I ain't raising my hand saying, I want to drink. It's over. It's over. It's over by that time. And we're not going to get so spiritual that my head won't lie to me. I'm intrigued by the human behavior. I really am. I'm not in college. I'm not taking psychiatry, but it fascinates me how we think sometimes. My head always lies to me. But what my experience has shown is that first thought is usually wrong. In Seinfeld, be opposite George. Have you ever seen that episode of George Costanza, be opposite George? I don't have the power to do that. I wish I did. If there wasn't text messaging, I probably would have owed no amends in the last 5 years. I will say things through text messages that I will never say to a person. My boss, the ex, right? Some people in AA, text messaging, and I'm never going to outgrow my humanness. It goes without saying that no one's perfect, and that it's progress, not perfection. But I can't let that be a vehicle for crappy behavior in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. When I'm wrong, I clean it up. I think that's why I'm still here. Everything I do is hinged on step 1. That's the linchpin. All my behaviors. When I act inappropriately, I clean it up as fast as I can. How fast am I to make amends? How fast am I to forgive? That's the tough one. Making amends is the easy part. It's the forgiveness is the hard part. And how willing am I to sit with a person? It doesn't have to be a new person. I think we get wrapped up on the new people. Step work is step work. I'm sitting down, that book gets cracked open. It doesn't matter if that person's helping me or I'm helping that person. And what happens is the language gets lost, and the helper becomes the helpee, and the helpee becomes the helper. And I know that through my own experience. There was a time when I ran a bunch of recovery houses in Philly for a while. for like 11 years. And it was a lot of houses, and it was overwhelming. Every once in a while, you just get this intuition, or it could be a delusion that something in the houses ain't right. I've ever lived in a recovery house. A lot of stuff happens in there, like constantly. I had a gut feeling that something wasn't right this night. And around the corner from my house was a recovery house that my buddy owned, and I was manager of them. And I went around, and it was about 11:30 on a Friday night, and lights were on. I knew it. They got girls in there. And I opened up the door, and it's one of them old Tacony houses down by the river, and it's got like 3 rooms and then a kitchen. It's got like a living room and a dining room and like another room and then a kitchen. And as I'm getting closer to the kitchen where people are, I can hear people. I could hear step work going on. And I couldn't tell. I listened for about 5 minutes. I couldn't tell who was helping who. And that was the bit. And that's also part of my awakening, where I get to be awake to that stuff. I couldn't tell who was helping who. One guy had double-digit sobriety. The other guy had 1 day. I didn't know that. I heard a bunch of people in the room. There was more than 2 people in that room, but I could hear the conversation between the 2. I could hear pages going, and I just slowly backed out. So that's how I know that my head, will always lie to me. But I had to go find out for myself. And like I said, everything I do is hinged on step 1. Why I have a home group and why I'm service to that home group. Why I sponsor people. Sponsorship, like I don't twist people's heads off and drink them like a beer. I hear that a lot. I don't twist. I don't even know what that means sometimes. I don't know what that even means. All I know is that Bill Wilson was batshit crazy in the Mayflower Hotel. He didn't give 2 rats' asses about Dr. Bob. He was there to save his own ass. If you want to be honest. He needed someone to talk to. It had to be a drunk to get with him. That might be a little harsh, but that's how I feel. So when I'm doing step work, it doesn't matter if the person's new or not. And it gets me up off of me just enough so I can breathe. My sponsees are my little islands of hope. Another guy at a meeting, he said that. When he's jammed up, he swims in one of the sponsees. There was little islands of hope. I lost both parents in 10 months, and 5 months of that was without AA. There was no fellowship. There's a lot of power here. Step 1 has empowered us, but the power of fellowship it's important. I never thought that. I was that guy who was strictly big book studies, step work till 1 o'clock in the morning, every night of the week. That was my life. And then, I was a guy who duct taped 8 big books around his chest, slide into a meeting 5 minutes late, blow the meeting up like a suicide big book bomber, saying everybody's doing it wrong. And then walk out and go to the next meeting and do the same thing over and over and over again. That's not productive. And an old timer pulled me aside and said, Rick, that's great you had an experience with the 12 steps, but it's time for a new one. Stop being a big book lawyer and go read the history of AA. And I had no experience with that. Now I see how God's fingerprints and footprints and the blueprint was written all over it. And I had no experience with that. But the fellowship, we got the power of my own understanding, which is just, it's hard to talk about step 1 without steps 2 and whatever. But what my sponsor said to me was, it was snowing that night. I had 0 days sober when he was 12-step, and we were talking about step 1. He said, talking about God, I said, I don't want to hear about God. I've been in AA, I said, I asked God to keep me sober, and he didn't. I don't want to hear about God. I don't think that's God's job to keep me sober. And he said, Rick, go out there and stop the snow. Can you stop the snow? I said, no. He said, nature's a power greater than you. Just like that, things started to click a little bit and start to make sense. The first 3 steps are my right relationship with that power that makes it snow. Whatever runs this universe is a perfect law and order. Like Ron's a great AA guy, a great father, grandfather, husband. If we take Ron on the top of this roof, we push him off, Ron going to go splat. We'll be scraping him up with a shovel. Gravity won't say, let's let Ron down, let's let him float down. Or we're going to make Jason go splat. There's a law and order that runs this universe, and I have to get in tune with that. And I got in tune with that in the men's. When I became willing to make my amends, started knocking on doors, the universe started spinning in a different way. And I can't explain that. I wish I could, I can't. That's how I know this is not of me. I tried to keep myself sober. For 6 years, I tried to keep myself sober, away from that first drink. I have a mind that's going to say, drink. And then we have this other stuff. One day sober, maybe people, places, and things might work. You know, we got somebody with 30 days, I want to get a job bartending on Somerset Street. It might not be a good idea. But I know today, everywhere I go, I'm the person. Anywhere I go is a place. And right here's the thing. This is the thing that's going to take me back to a drink. Booze ain't outside doing push-ups. Did anybody ever see a bottle of Budweiser doing push-up? Like, some shit don't make sense. I have enough wherewithal to question shit today. Like, it doesn't make sense. Booze out there doing. I'm like, I'm never going like this. Really? I never walked by a shelf and a bottle of vodka poured itself down my throat. It's right here. It just chatters. Like, I drink for a sense of ease and comfort. I don't drink because I like tasting the cosmopolitan. I might say I do while I'm drinking it, but I'm getting that sense of ease and comfort that's coming with it. All my nerdness and all my fear and anger and jealousy goes by the wayside. I never knew I was jealous till I got sober. I mean, what is this thing I'm feeling? She says, you're jealous. I mean, no, I'm not. Yes, you are. You're jealous. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm jealous. I'm angry. I get resentful a lot. But the 4 steps has taught me that when I get resentful, that brings you back to prayer and meditation, and it can't be bad. I don't treat that resentment as when it will bring me back to a drink. And it's really simple. I just look at my mistakes in it. There's a reason why I have that. All jealousy is this fear. All anxiety is this fear. Right? And booze is my fear remover. So it makes logical sense why I drank all the time. And now I have a way out. It's called prayer and meditation. The 12 steps do the same exact thing that booze did for me. It doesn't work as fast as 5 shots of tequila, but it works. And the first 3 steps get my relationship with God right. In that 3rd step, I didn't want to hear about God. So my sponsor had enough wherewithal. Where he got it from, I don't even know. I thought he was a genius. He said, I know you don't want to hear about God, but can you serve? I didn't know what that meant. I said, serve what? Like, what do you mean? He said, can you go make coffee at the Stepping Stones tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock? Can you serve AA? And by serving AA, your relationship with people are going to get right. And the relationship with people get right, you'll start to be aware of God. I'm like, dude, that don't make any sense. I started to serve, go to the same meeting 9 o'clock in the morning and 12 o'clock. I started to see the same people. I started to see how powerful our fellowship is in 12 steps. I started connecting the dots. Things started to clear up. Steps 4 through 7 get me right with myself, which is no relationship really, because I've become painfully aware of my own existence in my own life and in your life. I was talking with a friend on the way up here, and he got mad at his boss because it affected him. I said, you don't exist. If you don't exist, how can it affect you? If you have no way, how can it affect you? And he got relief for a minute, but then we're right back in the argument with me again. Steps 8 and 9, my right relationship with you guys, with people. I go through those first 9 steps, I'm going to have an experience. And I did have an amazing experience in step 9. Step 9 is where I had my experience. Then I went through 10, 11, and 12 with the sponsoring guys right soon after that.